Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Moms Talks Sex podcast. I'm your host, Maura Yelvington of Morph Transform Your Reality, where I help women step out of trauma and reclaim their power. I'm so happy to have you here for this open conversation about moms, sex, motherhood, children, relationships, marriage, and everything in between. So grab your drink of choice and let's dive in. I'm so honored to have you here. And today I'm excited for this juicy conversation I'm going to have with the beautiful Sara. So, hey, Sara, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Really great to be here.
I am so excited you're here because I feel like what you're going to share with us today is going to really blow some moms' heads off. So, let's just dive in. How about you share a little bit about you, what you do, and
Sure.
yeah, dive in.
Great. So I live in Massachusetts in the United States, and I am a mom to two boys, and I homeschool my youngest, my 9-year-old, and I run my own business called Soma Synthesis Studios, where I'm creating spaces for healing, integration, and expansion. So I work a lot with the body. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner. So I work a lot with people's bodies and nervous systems and helping people get out of pain and overcome blocks and fears and all sorts of things. So I have my hands in many in different things. So that's one aspect, but the thing that I love to do the most.
I love that. Maybe we can share a little bit more about somatic, like
Yeah,
therapy or energy, or I don't know how you want to call it, but maybe
sure.
so people can know a little bit what that is a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So soma means body. So somatic healing, you might have heard, or somatic therapies. I would call myself a somatic coach because I'm not licensed, so I'm not doing therapy, but I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner. And really what we're doing is we're looking at our body and how we're wired. So because we're mammals, we have a particular wiring. We're wired to survive. And so our nervous system really governs our behavior, and it governs our patterns and any of the ways we get stuck or repeat the same patterns that we can't get out of. And so I work with a lot of moms and a lot of entrepreneurs who are wanting to really rewire those patterns. So we're helping the body come into some completion, releasing anything that might be stuck or caught. Or if you have trauma, that also we hold all of that in our physical nervous system and in our tissues. And so I have lots of tools and strategies and practices that I help people to utilize so that they can feel better in their bodies, so that they're living aligned lives and really accessing their potential without feeling like you're blocked or that you're stuck in the same old story. Lots of people come and find me and find somatic practitioners when they've done a lot of talk therapy or they have a lot of good awareness and they're like know what they need to do, but their body's just like not quite lining up. And I think that happens a lot with us in sex. Like we want to be in it, we want to be there with our partner, and we want to be enjoying it, but our body is like saying other things. We might feel tight, we might feel dry, we might not feel ready in our body. And so I'm really, or any somatic practitioner is helping the mind and body really find that alignment so that you can be living life the way that you want to.
Yes, I love that so much. And it really sounds like the therapy, the energy healing that I do. I call it the, diamond status, when you're just aligned, right? When your
Yes.
mind, body, soul, and your vagina is aligned into that beautiful diamond shape, which is your diamond status. And then you're
Beautiful.
ready to go. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I tune into. So I'm so curious. Maybe we can share some tools, like what do you do with your clients that really helps them? Like you said, how do we get that mind and body to connect so we can have that juicy connection with our partners?
Yeah. And there's so many avenues to explore. So just to jam on that question for a second, the first piece is really reconnection with the body in general. And I think that really happens like outside the bedroom and outside of intimacy. There's so many ways, particularly as busy women, that we override the way that our body is communicating, from really simple things like the bathroom. How many times are we holding in pee just to get through that meeting, or our kids' performance, or whatever, and not listening and not acknowledging. And so the first is really reconnecting so we can slow down enough to listen to what our body is actually communicating, because that's really where the magic happens when we're then in the bedroom, is being able to identify like what we might need in any given moment. And I think what happens a lot for people, and it certainly has on my journey, is that we want to feel a certain way, and so we're overriding what our body is communicating to us in those moments. And so where a long nice pause might be really called for in the bedroom, or being able to just stop or change it up and maybe dance for a minute before we're getting back into like more intimacy, like that is communicated through the body, and we need to be able to advocate for that. And so to know that, we have to kind of start outside of those more activating containers when we're with our partner. So building awareness, being aware of what we might need. And that's a very simple start of starting to ask yourself on a regular basis, hey, body, what do you need right now? And that could be water. That could be, I need the bathroom. That could be like, I just need to sit down for a minute. And being able to honor those things. And that to me is a tool really where it starts. That awareness.
I love that. I always say, ask your body, right?
Yes.
And it's really funny because I have little kids and I say that to them with their food too. And they're like, oh, I want to eat, this. I'm like, ask your body. Does your body want it? And my son the other day was like, my body wants ice cream. I'm like, okay. So he's eating the ice cream. And then he's like, oh, my body wants more ice cream. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, my body wants more ice cream. And he eats more ice cream. And then he's like, my tummy hurts. I'm like, I don't think you were listening to your body, were you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah. But that was like teaching him, and he was really aware, he's 5. And so that was really a mirror for him. But I love the example you give, because it's true. We're so almost programmed to ignore our body, to ignore the signals, to ignore what it's telling us. And then we become moms, and it's even worse, right? Because it's just like sacrificing our body for everybody else. So
Absolutely. And I think it can be really hard to listen to our bodies, and we keep going, because if we do listen, we might not like what we're hearing. Our body's telling us to slow down. It's telling us to pause. It's telling us, no, like intercourse isn't what we want right now. We just want to cuddle. Like, so being really honest with ourselves is really this first step to rebuilding the trust between your body and like your actions. And then once that trust is there, like you're saying with that diamond alignment, right, then we're really being able to access pleasure, because we then know what we want. Part of my journey is I've had so much pain with sex over the years, and I really had to learn how to navigate that. And like, I wanted to want it. I didn't want it at all, because every time I was having sex, I was in pain. And that, of course, my body is not going to want more of that. But intellectually, it's like, I want to satisfy my husband. Like, I want to feel good. This, like, I have to make this work. And forcing my body to do it wasn't the way. And so really having to slow down and listen, really fine-tunedly listen to what it was asking of me, I was able to start to hear what would be pleasurable in different ways and follow those threads. And over the last 7 years, open up amazing pleasure that I didn't even know I had access to, because I was listening to what my body actually wanted and slowing down long enough to hear it tell me.
I love that you share that. I was actually listening to an intimacy coach the other day, and she was saying that even lubricant, because they talk about sexual trauma a lot. And she's saying even lubricant can be a way of sexual trauma, because it's literally overriding your body. And, she's like, if you're a woman and you're in desire and you want, and I'm not talking about the older ages, maybe you're going through menopause and it's normal to be a little dry. But if your body is dry, it means your body just isn't ready. And we've like conditioned ourselves to a place where we are using outside sources to make our body think that we are ready when we're not. And so even that could be a form of sexual trauma, because we're just not listening to what our body is telling us. So I think that is so on point with what you're saying. But I'm curious, maybe you can share, have you ever figured out what was the root of your pain, for your for that?
Yeah. So I think sometimes it's really hard to figure out, like, we always want to know the why. And based on how we hold trauma in our bodies, and there's so much research now around epigenetics and intergenerational trauma, and we're holding generations of trauma, and particularly as women. And so I don't have any direct experience with sexual trauma, but my mom has a history of real significant sexual abuse all through her life. So some of the connections that I've made was my body was in the shutdown in response from, it was really hers. I was holding a lot of hers. So I've done a lot of work to not judge the way my body was showing up and not give myself a hard time and not even have to know why. Is it hers? Is it mine? Is it my grandma's? Is it, whatever? And just allow it to move through and allow myself to work with practitioners and to work with pelvic floor therapists and to really get very curious with my body, and also work with my partner, like teach my partner how to meet me in what I need, how to hold space for me, how to worship me so that I'm open and ready and like wanting to receive him, like that. And he was willing. And that's tricky because sometimes there's a lot of shame that comes up for our partners when, like for me, I'm shutting down in the middle of us being intimate, and then that challenges his manhood, even though it's nothing to do with him, right? So it can stir up so much shame for both of us and for both parties. So really being in that education and slowing down and normalizing that over time, really like having him respect my body over and over again, meeting me where I was at over and over again, us stopping, or my favorite game is pause. So we're not stopping and it's over. We say pause, and it's a sexy pause, right? We know we're gonna eventually come back into things, but being able to identify, wow, my body's starting to shut down. So instead of the collapse that was happening, which looked like me, my legs going kind of numb, everything kind of just like stopping moving, so my body being in a freeze, I started to be able to notice, like right as my body was doing that. And then I could name in the intimate moment with my husband, okay, pause. And then we'd lie together. He knows a spot to rub on my back. We would keep the connection until my body settled and moved out of the freeze. So, I mean, the beautiful thing about our bodies is that we can self-heal and they have these amazing potentials. And so we just have to slow down and listen and respect what's happening. And over time, that really makes a lot of the repairs. So, that was my long way around to answer the question. So I do think it stems from my historical family trauma, because there's no specific, incident I can remember, but also as a woman, I grew up with many unsatisfactory experiences. Many times I'm sure I was saying yes when my body, like you were sharing before, when my body really wasn't ready. And that also stacks and stores in our system as well. So again, hard to tease out the one thing, but everything kind of gets overlaid.
Yeah, I love it. And now you would say you were in a place where it doesn't hurt anymore and things are great.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like, it just is. I mean, the depth of orgasm that I'm able to have, the way and how I've uncovered like what real pleasure feels like, right? Like the chasing the orgasm versus softening, opening, really receiving it, moving through you. Like, I just was able to start to access and continue to uncover deeper and deeper ways that pleasure can unfold for us through, again, this slowing down and listening and being able to follow what actually feels good instead of what I think I'm supposed to look like, or I think I'm supposed to feel, or I think I'm supposed to do to my partner. All of those things sort of out the window, and only being in that alignment with what I desire. And I have to say, like, that psychological function of desire, we all have different functions, thinking and imagination and intuition and sensation, and we have desire impulse. For me, as a people pleaser growing up and as like a really type A person, I had no connection to my desire. I had no connection to what I actually wanted or needed, because I was so good at doing it for everybody else. So in my business, in my life, and in the bedroom, it all mirrors each other. I've really had to reconnect and learn, like, oh, what like does desire even feel like for me, and follow that.
I think you're hitting so many keynotes for so many women here. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is gold.
Awesome.
So we were talking about a melt technique that you said you were using. So maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Sure. So one of the many modalities that I'm trained in is something called the melt method, and it uses little rubber balls and quite large soft foam rollers that work to hydrate our connective tissue system. So our connective tissue is like that 3D fluid matrix that houses all of our muscles and bones, and it makes sure that we're stabilized and balanced and protected. And so our nervous system receptors live in the connective tissue. And so over time, what happens is that our connective tissue gets dehydrated. That happens from aging. That happens from the repetitive movements that we're in, like sitting at a desk all day or driving our cars or looking down at our phones. And we built up what the creator of Melt, Sue Hitzman, calls stuck stress. And so those are like the knots in your shoulders, or like, maybe you throw out your back, but you didn't really do anything. You were just like picking up a pencil, right? All of that stuff stacks in our body. And so what the melt method does is it's very simple treatments that you get to learn how to do on your own, and you're flushing your tissue system, and it gets rid of pain. It helps digestion. It helps you sleep really well at night. It helps your balance. I work a lot with hot performers and athletes. And so this is an amazing recovery tool. People who are interested in their own self-healing, it is facilitating your healing properties to come back online. It's accessing in your nervous system and helping everything settle and come online. And so what I've been doing with this modality is bringing it to women who are having issues with intimacy, who are feeling more shut down in the bedroom or wanting to be feeling good. I also, I have a history of chronic pain and illness. And so this is a modality that helps me. I do it before I have sex. My husband and I sometimes will have melt nights before we'll do it together. And then we're both releasing our nervous systems. We're getting our nervous systems in a place where we're ready and open and receiving. And we're flushing that tissue system. So everything's getting extra juicy, everything's softening. Because a lot of times when we're in the bedroom and we're in intimate moments, we might tense up or clench or something, we're touched funny. And then we have this response in the body. And I love melt because in those moments, you have to tell yourself, okay, body, settle, calm down. You try to breathe yourself down. Melt's great because you get on the roller and it whoa, you drop into the floor. It settles everything. And so this is just a really amazing tool that you have to be taught how to use it. But then once you know the sequences and things, it's just a self-care practice to be able to do on your own that helps regulate your nervous system and help you just feel less stress, and helps your body feel better so that it's more open and ready to be in that, juicy connection with your partner. And so some of my favorite sessions are my couple sessions where I have couples coming together. I call it an alternative date night, melted pleasure. And they come in and are able to learn melt together and develop a practice together that will help them.
Sounds amazing. I can just imagine me and my husband doing that. That sounds really cool. Is there any maybe a tool or a technique that you can share with us that we can maybe practice?
Yeah, great question. So in general, and I'll make sure I include the Melt links for the show notes, but checking out the Melt website and, really looking at, you would want to find that softball hand and foot kit or a large Melt roller to have those basic tools. But without tools, just in terms of thinking about what gets us ready to step into more intimate moments, what's a way that we can really down regulate our nervous systems, particularly as busy moms, we're jacked up. Oftentimes we don't even have a lot of time. We've carved out a little bit of time, or it's, everyone's in bed and it's 20 minutes before we're all going to pass out and have to get back up and start the day. So to think about, right, how to quickly get, or more quickly get your body in a place and ready and open to receive. So one of the practices that my husband and I will do together is long exhale breathing together. And so we'll sit and we'll lay down next to each other, so we're touching, or we'll sit back to back, or we'll sit knee to knee facing each other. So whatever you're most comfortable with, or whatever sort of you're feeling called to. And a trick to helping breath settle our bodies is our exhale. So a lot of times we're taught, oh, take a deep breath and that will help your stress. In fact, that actually can make things worse. So the trick here is a super long exhale. So I like to do like a 3-1-5 breath with my husband, where we're breathing in for 3 seconds together, we're holding for 1 second or more, and then we're exhaling like a really long exhale together. And as we're doing that, the awareness is on how we're both settling our systems together. So we might do that for 3 or 4 breaths before we move into, something else. We could put a timer on for 10 minutes and just notice what happens when we are just in that rhythmic breathing together. But that is another kind of little tool. And really, it doesn't have to be breathing. It can be anything that relaxes and settles you. Sometimes we forget that step before, clothes are off and things, and then we're supposed to just be all ready. So I like putting on music and dancing a little bit. Like, that's something I enjoy. I know for other people that's like, dancing, I want to do that. But finding the things. And that's why I think I like Melt so much, because it's science-based. So it helps the men buy in, because a lot of times, your partner might be a little resistant to try, let's breathe together, honey. Okay. It might be a little woo-woo, but like with the roller work, or the balls and doing the hand and foot treatments, it's very concrete. It's like, do this thing. It's based in science, and it's going to make your wife very happy, your partner very happy, and let's try that. But in general, like even just a short joint practice of a breathing, or of just looking at each other, or of listening to a song together. Sometimes my husband and I will put a meditation on that doesn't have words, that's not guided. It's like a music meditation. Again, we might play a little game and not touch, or like say to each other, hey, let's try not to touch each other while we lay here for 10 minutes. And then that can kind of like add a little bit of that electric energy into the air. So that's another possibility too. If you're going to breathe together, you might not touch, and kind of have that as a game.
I love that. And I'm just curious, because it seems like your husband is very invested and bringing you to a place where you are open and willing to explore. And I'm curious, how did you guys get to that point? Because I feel like there's a lot of shame around even women bringing this stuff up to their partners, let alone some partners just feel like it's, you just do it and you get over with it and you go to bed, right?
Right.
So how did you guys, maybe you can share how you guys got to that point of being able to be here now, right?
Yeah. And it's such a great question. And it's very true. I'm very fortunate, because I think my husband really is very open and willing to try different things. It started out of conflict, though, as much things do, right? Like out of both of us going into deep shame spirals while we were having sex, because my body would shut down, then he would feel guilty and emasculated and like he did something wrong, and then I would feel badly that he was shut down, right? And then it's like this whole cycle. So not in those moments, but other moments outside of the issue, we would have conversations where I would bring up and being really direct around what I was noticing about my body, and sharing with him from a trauma perspective, like, my body is remembering something. This is not about you. Like, me really reassuring this is has nothing to do with you or what you're doing. Like, I'm carrying a lot of stuff here and I'm working through this. And so then he immediately went to what can I do to support you? And so then we started to get really creative with that. Definitely with clients that I've had where their partner might not be as agreeable or open, one of the approaches is really coming at it, hey, I have a way we can make this a lot better. and like, do you want to make this better? I have like, will you play this game with me and turn it into a game? Most of the time when you're asking your partner to play a game of pleasure, like there's a little bit more agreeable, or like, I'm uncovering that, like, if we take more time here, or if I'm able to just say pause sometimes, that like that could really spice some things up. Like, how do you feel about that? And I do think the invitation for anyone listening, if this is resonating, is to have these conversations, not when you're in the middle of trying to be intimate, because I think that like sometimes we've had productive conversations when we've both shut down and then we come back and we talk about it. But our most productive conversations have come from me finding some ideas and at another time saying, hey, tonight I got a new thing. Will you try this like little game with me? And him wanting to. And then the reinforcement comes from my body, then is so much more available to him, and having such a different kind of response that then reinforces him showing up for me with my asks.
I love that. So I'm curious, what brought you into that awareness, right? Because I feel like a lot of women, they don't even, they're not even aware. They're just like, oh, I'm just not horny. Like I've, dealt with the kids all day. I've been needed. I don't want anybody to touch me. So, how do you even come to that awareness where, hey, I am carrying some trauma here that I need to look at, and that's, not your stuff. So many times we're so used to blaming our partner, or, not taking responsibility for our own, connection to our body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it was really about, can you repeat the question? Because my brain just went out the door.
No, I get it. I was asking, like, how did you get the awareness that,
yes,
for you?
Yes, it's back. Okay. I was in so much pain. I really think it started because my husband was pointing it out. Like, you look uncomfortable. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like he could tell my body was shutting down. So that was in some ways. And then in other ways, like I was starting to just be really uncomfortable, and like got to a place of like, this is not supposed to be like this. Like, it's actually supposed to be enjoyable. Like, there's supposed to be pleasure. And it wasn't that I wasn't having orgasms, because I definitely was, like, on a regular basis, but I was having to really effort for them and chase them. And like, it wasn't that, they were fine, but it was like, compared to what's happening now, it's just two different caliber experiences. But I just really got to a place where like, this wasn't okay in my body. And this is a place that is supposed to be pleasure. I was at the time, so all of this started when I had started my somatic experiencing training. And so I started to really look at my body and start to notice, oh, wow. And not just in the bedroom, there was so many ways all around I was very shut down and overriding my cues, and was getting all these diagnoses of chronic illness. And so my body was shouting very loudly on lots of different layers. And so that was an element of, I really want to enjoy this. And I also had known from a lot of sort of my spiritual work and studies that like, our pleasure is our life force energy. It is where creativity comes from. It's where we then get to be in this full expression. It can be a channel to connect us to something much bigger and deeper than ourselves. And I wanted that. And I wanted to want it, because that was the thing. Like, it was just, everything was okay. Like, and I'm doing this because I think I'm supposed to want to, or I really want it, but it wasn't, because I genuinely felt it within me, moving through me. And so it was through that I decided to really get some help. I found a really amazing holistic pelvic floor physical therapist who I started to work with. And then just from my own trauma training, I started to do my trauma work with my husband and really have him help me move through some of the stuff. And I I had a lot of body work sessions where I was able to move through a lot of like whatever was stuck in my body, whether it's mine, whether it was my mom's, but there was a lot that moved through.
Yeah. It's so interesting because a lot of the work I do with women, there's so much subconscious programming, and that's
Yes.
exactly what it is. We're just so unaware of how much we take on our own. Like it's insane. So like I said, a lot of times it's not even that we have to experience the trauma ourselves. We could be witnessing or hearing it, or being in a vicinity. We're so energetical connected that we just take on so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially if our moms went through this stuff, because then we are born through our moms, and so we just kind of carry that with us.
Yeah, and when we're in the womb, we're not separate. We're not a separate being. We are our mother, and so all of that we're getting marinated and prepared to exist as our mother because we're not separate. And so all of the patterns, all the ways that they worked to keep safe, that becomes sort of like our foundation. And so a lot of clients that I work with are like, I don't know where I get these patterns. Like, I have no idea where they come from, because they don't have direct experience of being, what they would consider sexually violated or have that trauma. And yet our bodies are remembering. And just in general, womb carrying folk, we have and are holding trauma for generations of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the research is showing, I think, 7 generations that we're carrying backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
Into a conversation about time, but right. So there are just so many layers that we're working through. And so, as I was kind of naming before, like trying not to get hooked on the why and just really accessing, your presence to be with what's here now. Because almost, if you're shutting down while it's happening, it almost doesn't matter why you're shutting down while sex is happening. So like, let's address that. Let's get creative with that. And let's really invite in hope, because we don't have to settle for meh. We don't have to settle for mediocre, and it certainly shouldn't hurt.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I had this experience, I know lots of women have, of going to the gynecologist and trying to figure this out. And I was given ridiculous options around how to problem solve it. I was given numbing cream to put down it, in my areas. And it's like, so I can't feel anything like that. It's just, it was unbelievable. So getting really fed up with that and saying, wait, like, let's really just reconnect here, and choosing into some practitioners and some practices that were a little bit more holistic, really helped.
Well, yeah, it's crazy how much this reality tells us to disconnect and cut those parts of us off and numb them down. And, then we're surprised that so many women are on antidepressants and have anxiety, right? Absolutely. Yeah. It's like that disconnect from who we really are. I call it our source, right? We're disconnecting from our source. This is the source where we create everything, where we came from. If we're disconnected from it, it's creating an imbalance in our body. So connecting it and healing it is what it's all about. So what an enlightening conversation. I think this is going to touch for so many women, like really, really. So thank you so much. If my listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook at Expand Your Capacity. I'm on Instagram at Sara.Vatore, and Sara doesn't have an H. And then my website is saravatore.com, and I'm always posting my workshops and different classes and offerings. I work with couples, I work one-on-one and do somatic coaching. And if you're local to the Massachusetts area, I do hands-on healing sessions and retreats. And also I have a podcast that you can find me on, Multidimensional Transmissions, and I interview multi-passionate and multifaceted entrepreneurs who are weaving just really cool things in their work in the world. And so that's on all available podcast platforms.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, this is so powerful. And I am just so grateful that you came on and shared this time with me with this Moms Talk Sex conversation. So thank you so much. And
thank you for listening to today's episode. If this was a contribution to you, please share, like, love, and comment. I would love to hear from you more, and make sure to follow us on Morph Healing. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember, you are here for a reason. I see you. Love, more.